Well, let me tell you about the 5 players you have to care about most importantly. I'm going to start with number 4. That's Luka Doncic. We're going to go a little bit out of order. It's Casual Fridays. Now, Luka's the 4th most important player to me in the playoffs. Why? Because Luka is an absolute baller. You'll have to remember averaging 35 points per game last year in the playoffs, 7 boards, 10 assists. The year before, 31 points, 10 boards, 9 assists. Luka is a killer, and what I've heard, I ain't gonna body shame, but they say skinny Luka, a different type of beast. So Luka's at number 4. At the 3 spot, assuming I'm going to number 3. At the 3 spot, I got Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant, 49, 17, and 10. That's all you need to know. Those were the playoff numbers KD had last year. The only player in NBA history with 45, 15, and 10 or more in a playoff game. Now, people might be wondering, why isn't Kevin Durant higher? And it's for this reason. Kevin Durant is an incredible player, an incredible scorer, and he can keep his team alive. But in the playoffs, you got to make sure everybody around you can elevate as well. And that is what my number 2 player can do. Steph Curry, the 2nd most important player in my mind in these NBA playoffs. I understand he's been dealing with a lower leg injury. We get it. He ain't played a game since March 16th. That's fine, because what Steph does is get buckets. But more importantly than getting buckets, in the playoffs, you got to be able to make everybody around you better. That's what Steph did in 2015. That's what Steph did in 2017, 18, 16, and even 19. Keep in mind, the last time we saw Steph, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green on a court, they were in the NBA Finals. So while Steph might not be the same scorer that some other guys are, he makes everybody around him better, which is exactly what my number 1 guy does in Giannis Antetokounmpo. Because Giannis, he gave you 50 in an elimination game. He gave you 40 in an elimination game. Now, when he gave you 50, he wasn't up for elimination. He was making sure the Suns got eliminated. When he gave you 40, it was Game 7 versus the Brooklyn Nets. So when he saw Kevin Durant, who was my 3rd most important player in these playoffs, Giannis found a way to elevate his game at a higher clip than KD. But the most important thing that Giannis can do for me, he makes everybody around him better. Keep in mind, we didn't talk about the Bucks having a big 3 last year. We only talked about the Nets, KD, Kyrie, Harden. But by the time the playoffs came to an end, we were speaking about Jrue Holiday, Chris Middleton, and Giannis as a big 3. So when it comes down to the 5 most important players for me in the playoffs, my 5th, which I omitted, was Chris Paul. My 4th was Luka. My 3rd was KD. My 2nd, Steph Curry. And the last, the Nigerian freak, because y'all know where he's really from. But anyway, that's my list. Marcellus Wiley is off today, so I got to bring in co-host of The Herd, who's supposed to make a grand entrance, the one and only Joy Taylor. And there she is. Joy, what's your top 5 list of NBA superstars you'd want for the playoffs?
Well, we agree on some of these, but I'm going to start with, can I start with 5? Was there a reason to start with 4? I'll start with 5. My 5 is Ja Morant. Now, Ja Morant is obviously also injured, although they are expecting him back for the playoffs. He's averaging almost 28 points per game. He is the lifeblood and energy of that team. They've had an incredible season, and that is why he's so important. Regular season is different than the postseason. You got to have your star. Yes, you can survive. Yes, you can play well. You can tweak your lineups and stay above water and keep your consistency going. But you need a star in Ja Morant and the Memphis Grizzlies, who's a team that I think you should take very seriously in the playoffs. If they get him back, that's going to be crucial. So he is at 5. All right, let's go to 4. Devin Booker. Devin Booker. Now, you have Chris Paul, who I think is very, very crucial and important. But Devin Booker is the scorer. He's the young blood on this team. Career high, 26.7 points per game this season. Obviously, they are trying to get back to the finals. They're a team that's playing with the energy of an underdog as the best team in the league, and that should scare everybody. So if they're healthy and ready to go, I think they are going to come out of the West, and Devin Booker is going to be a crucial part of that. Number 3, I have Steph Curry. So we're going to switch him around. Switch him around a little bit. As you mentioned, he is injured. But this is Steph Curry, one of the best players in the league. We know what he brings to the game. We don't have to get into all of that. But the Warriors are a very serious team. They are a well-run team, a well-coached team, a well-balanced team. All great for the regular season. Again, postseason is different. Steph Curry knows a thing or two about the postseason, how to play in it. If they get him back healthy for the playoffs, they're going to be a problem, someone everyone should be afraid of in the West, and they need Steph Curry back. Number 2, I see him on your list. That's Joel Embiid. Isn't some Joel Embiid shade, I think, coming up in the show? Is that how this is going to go down?
I'm just intrigued. I can't wait to see your 1, but continue on Embiid.
Joel Embiid. All right. So we know the Sixers haven't reached the Eastern Conference Finals since 2001 with AI. Shout out AI. He leads the NBA in scoring this year. He's had an unbelievable MVP season. You need your MVP out there playing at the highest level. Joel Embiid is somebody that I want if I'm going into the playoffs and the Sixers have him.
Now, real quick.
That's very important.
Real quick. What y'all don't know is in prompter, her one is there, but I'm not looking at prompter because I want to be as surprised as you all at home are when she reveals one, because either KD or Giannis is not on this list.
Embiid ain't on your list.
Shall we?
All right, it's Giannis. I mean, look, it's Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis Antetokounmpo, who had an unbelievable postseason, shut up all the haters and all the people that had questions about his game and what he was capable of. Staying in Milwaukee, winning a championship for the Bucks. They're trying to repeat. I don't think they're as good defensively this year, but you want that man out there in the playoffs, so I have Giannis at 1. The reason I don't have KD up there, who I do think is the 1 or 1A, depending on what night it is in the NBA, best player in the NBA, is I don't think the Nets have enough. I think KD is an incredible player, but they're an 8 seed for a reason. So I think you need more than KD. I know you're talking about Kyrie, but this is a different world. I don't think the Nets have enough, which is why I would have him at 6. Where would you have Embiid?
Embiid, I don't trust him. Point blank, period. Like, I was in Philly when Embiid got to Philly. Trust the process. Trust the process.
That was a little
trust the
while
process.
ago.
Come on now,
Emmanuel
Joy.
Acho.
What they say, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice.
That was a little while ago.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on who? Shame on me. Embiid has been fooling me for the duration of his NBA career. Now, has he balling this year? Best season we've seen. Top 3 MVP candidate, no doubt about it. 30 points per game, I love it. 10 boards per game, I love it. But in the playoffs, I want somebody who I know can get me there. Giannis can get me there. Curry can get me there. Durant can get me there. Those are my top 3. Okay, you see, I stopped for a reason. You tried to call me out.
Okay.
You tried to call me out.
Okay, I was waiting for a break because I didn't want to interrupt you. What has Luka Doncic proved in the playoffs?
In the playoffs, he's proven this. Remember, he carried the Dallas Mavericks to 7 versus the Clips when the Clips had PG and the Clips had a healthier Kawhi during the duration of that series, the majority of that series, if you will. The thing about Luka for me is this, and I could have Luka higher. If the dude averages essentially a triple-double, the only reason Luka's not number 2, number 1, because in the fourth quarter, dude be out of shape. But this year, he's showing us that he doesn't waver off in the fourth quarter. That is why I like Luka. The interesting thing I have for you with your list, Chris Paul to me is more important than Devin Booker. Because the 5 years prior to Chris Paul's arrival, the Suns' worst record in basketball. The 2 years since Chris Paul showed up, the Suns' best record in basketball. You value Devin Booker and his scoring over Paul and his leadership?
I do value Chris Paul's leadership very high level. I agree with you there. But I think in this postseason, having the experience that he had last year, Devin Booker leveling up is going to be what takes the Suns over the top. Chris Paul is vitally important. I absolutely agree. But you got to have your star young player elevate in the postseason in order to win a championship, and that's what I think Devin Booker's going to do.
Okay, let's pivot here because we understand this much. We know that these players, you can add Embiid to my list, you can add Durant to her list. These are the most important players. At least these are going to be the most valuable players. But Joy, who would you say is under the most pressure? They can be on your list. They don't have to be on your list. Who's under the most pressure in this playoffs?
Well, with great praise and admiration comes great responsibility. So I think that Giannis is under the most amount of pressure this postseason. They're going to try and repeat, which we know is very difficult to do. He is, according to Emmanuel Acho, the best player in the NBA. I think most nights he is. He swaps out with a few other players. But it is Giannis. He is in the MVP race once again. I think the best player in the league has to have the most amount of pressure. And, you know, everyone's just writing off a little heat, lowly little heat. East ain't nothing, so
Joy, ain't
you gotta
nobody,
bring it this
ain't
year,
nobody
then.
worried about your heat. God, you almost went the entirety of the A block without showing your Miami colors, and you had to go out there and show yourself. Well, what I have to do is bring in Fox NBA analyst Slick Rick the Bucher. So, Slick, if you are ready, sir, who is under the most pressure this NBA playoffs?
No question about it. It is Joel Embiid of the Philadelphia 76ers. He is on the verge of winning the scoring title. He very well may win MVP as well, and yet has never gotten out of the second round. But he's rid of Ben Simmons. He now has the guy who says, I can't believe I've never been this open before with James Harden. It is all set up for Joel Embiid to at least get to the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, do I have my concerns about the Philadelphia 76ers and their ability to do that? Yes, I do. But with the way everything is set up this season and the accolades that are going to come Joel's way, at the very least, the scoring title, this is his time. This is time for the process to come to completion and at least deliver the 76ers where they have never gone since the process began, since Joel Embiid was drafted, and that is the conference final.
Now, Slick, here's my thing. I like Embiid as an answer, but truth be told, if the Sixers don't make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, I don't think that Embiid is going to get nearly the criticism that a Kevin Durant might get if the Nets don't make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't think an Embiid is going to get nearly the criticism that a Giannis Antetokounmpo might get if the Bucks don't make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Embiid, I think he might be hidden because, truth be told, I have James Harden as being under more pressure than Joel Embiid. James Harden was supposed to be the one that's the lethal scorer. James Harden was the one who arrived, and we started saying, Slick, James Harden and Embiid are a near comp to Kobe and Shaq. Keep in mind, Kobe and Shaq went to 4 finals and won 3. So I would even submit to you that James Harden is under more pressure than Embiid. What would you say to that?
It all depends on whether you think the die is already cast. I feel as if James Harden has already demonstrated that he comes up short time after time after time. Did it with Brooklyn. Did it with Houston. You could even argue did it with Oklahoma City. So if he comes up short with Philadelphia, it's sort of like, you know what? We just rated James Harden too high from the very start. Joel Embiid is somewhat of a blank slate. The criticism and the shortcomings of the Philadelphia 76ers up to this point, especially last year, were put all at the feet of Ben Simmons. And one of the guys who put it at the feet of Ben Simmons was none other than Joel Embiid. So now it is put up or shut up time for Embiid. And the point of Giannis and some of the other players that have been mentioned, Giannis already has one in his back pocket. Yes, it puts him on another echelon if he wins back-to-back championships. But if he doesn't, we're talking about a guy who's only 27 years old, already a 2-time MVP, already has a championship and a finals MVP. I just don't know that there's as much pressure on him as far as there is with Joel to say, we're going to make our decision on whether Joel is for real or not, and everything comes to bear this season. Again, because he's going to win the scoring title and because he could very well win MVP. We saw what happened to Giannis when he won MVP and he didn't get there. It was a downturn. That's what Joel Embiid faces.
Here's a name that I think we are all omitting. Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is actually under the most pressure. I have James Harden being under the second most. Here's why, Slick. If Giannis is not the best player in the National Basketball Association, and I believe he is, but the general consensus outside of us from Nigeria, the general consensus is that Kevin Durant is the greatest basketball player on the planet. The general consensus is that Kevin Durant is more talented, a better scorer, is more lethal, all of those things. It works for Kevin Durant when it comes down to legacy talk. KD, best player in the NBA. But when it comes down to pressure talk, I think Kevin Durant's under the most pressure because Kevin Durant is on a net squad with Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving, an absolute baller. Kevin Durant is the person who went to a 73-win Warriors team and became the best player on that squad, allegedly. At least that's what people tell me. Kevin Durant is the top 15 player of all time already. Not Giannis, not Chris Paul, not Luka. Kevin Durant. So when I think about who's truly under all the pressure this postseason, it's got to be Kevin Durant under the most because he has the highest expectation. Go ahead.
I would agree with you if it weren't for the way this season has played out and the fact that they're in the play-in game. So we already have questions about just how good are the Nets collectively. And that's the distinction between me and between the Nets and the 76ers, Embiid and Durant for me. The 76ers are right there, tied with the defending champion Milwaukee Bucks. Joel Embiid is healthy for the first time, or as healthy as he's ever been in his career, arguably. Kevin Durant, not healthy, missed a great deal of the season. has Kyrie Irving. And you can look at Kyrie Irving or a plus or a minus, but however this goes, there's going to be a certain amount of responsibility put on Kyrie Irving. And then you have trading out James Harden for Ben Simmons. This is never the way this season was supposed to go. It already feels star-crossed. So for that reason, I feel as if Kevin Durant, because of what he's done individually, nobody's looking at Kevin Durant and saying he was a disappointment this season. They're saying the Brooklyn Nets were a disappointment. Because why? Because of Kyrie Irving being a part-time player, because James Harden decided to go, because Ben Simmons has yet to put on a uniform and play. All of those things are a reason to believe that the Nets may fall short. And I just don't see how that's going to be attached to Kevin Durant at the end of the day. Joel Embiid, on the other hand, has James Harden rather than Ben Simmons. He's healthy. They have one of the top records in home court advantage. So everything is tilting Joel Embiid's way to get it done. And if he doesn't, it's going to be awfully hard to scapegoat anybody else.
Now, Joy, for a second, I want to focus in on Kevin Durant because you perceive him to be the best basketball player or Giannis, correct?
Yeah, I think it's 1 and 1A.
1A, 1B, etc. Kevin Durant may be the best basketball player in basketball. I have him as the second most important player, third most important player in these playoffs. How much pressure do you think is on Kevin Durant going forward?
I agree with Rick. I don't think there's a lot of pressure on Kevin Durant. I think the only reason why the Nets have been viable all season long is Kevin Durant. So you can't really have the most pressure on you when you're coming into the postseason as an 8 seed. Now, you can argue the semantics of the situation. He chose to leave the Warriors and go to the Nets and team up with Kyrie, who chose to only play for half the games this season, who chose to, work with Harden, who is no longer there. All of those things are fine, but that doesn't have anything to do with the fact that they're an 8 seed coming into the playoffs in the play-in game. So I don't think that you can put that kind of pressure that you have on Giannis trying to repeat or Joel Embiid trying to get his team to the finals and in the MVP conversation, or any of these other teams actually at the top of the East. Now, stars obviously are going to have more pressure, but the only reason why the Nets would do anything in this postseason is because KD would have to rise above all of it and win 7-game series, not one elimination game to get into the postseason. So that's why I don't think there is anywhere near as much pressure on KD as there is a Giannis or a Joel Embiid.
I hear y'all. I just think y'all are being far too lenient on one of the greatest players the game of basketball has ever seen. If you're Kevin Durant, you left the Golden State Warriors for one reason. You didn't leave the Warriors because you didn't like the Bay. You left the Warriors to get back to a chip. If you're Kevin Durant and you've left the Warriors and now you're in Brooklyn and you recruited James Harden to Brooklyn, you had a big three. Year one, you get a pass. Big threes don't always win in year one. Y'all got to get together. You were in Miami, I believe, when the Heat formed their big three. Bron didn't win year one, lost to my Dallas Mavericks. Year one, you get a pass. But year two, it's time. Year two, you got to make it happen. So I can't really give Kevin Durant credit for making it to the postseason. As I see it, of course you made it to the postseason. I would hope you make it to the postseason. Now, for me, the pressure is all on KD. It's year two. You had a big three. You got rid of one of the members. If you want to go solo or if you want to be a duet, I still need you to make great music. Because when it comes down to it, you left the Bay for a reason, and it wasn't just to make the playoffs.